What does love look like when the galaxy itself is trying to kill you? In the 41st millennium, this is not a poetic question. It is a dangerous one. To even ask it is to admit uncertainty, and uncertainty is something the Imperium of Man has spent 10,000 years trying to erase. Here, humanity survives not because it is gentle, hopeful, or compassionate, but because it is obedient, fearful, and endlessly replaceable. Entire worlds burn every day, their populations reduced to footnotes in administratum ledgers. Life is cheap, death is constant, and tomorrow is never promised. And yet, somehow, impossibly, people still fall in love. The Imperium does not encourage this. It does not forbid it either. Love is far more efficiently dealt with through neglect. No sermons warn against romance. No laws explicitly ban affection. Instead, love is crushed beneath something far heavier, duty. From the moment a citizen of the Imperium can understand words, they are taught a single truth, that they exist to serve. Serve the Emperor. Serve the planet. Serve the machine of war that consumes everything and asks for more. There is no room in this doctrine for tenderness. No time set aside for longing. Love is not heresy, but it is irrelevant, and irrelevance is often a death sentence. Dating, as we understand it, does not exist in the Imperium of Man. There are no carefully planned evenings, no rituals of attraction, no expectation that two people should explore who they are together. Most Imperial citizens will never choose their work, their home, or even the length of their lives. The idea that they might choose a partner is almost absurd. And yet connections still form, not because they are allowed, but because humans are not machines. No matter how much the Imperium wishes otherwise, something stubborn and ancient refuses to die. Love in the 41st millennium does not begin with romance. It begins with proximity. Two people assigned to the same manufactorum line for 18-hour shifts. Two scribes buried alive in the same administratum archive vault. Two soldiers sharing a trench, knowing that if the artillery stops, the enemy is already too close. Attraction is not sparked by charm or beauty, but by endurance. By the simple realization that someone else is still breathing beside you, day after day, in a universe that has no reason to let either of you live. In this galaxy, love is never announced. It is discovered quietly, often too late to stop. A glance held for half a second longer than regulation allows. A shared ration split without comment. A name remembered when forgetting would be safer. These are not grand gestures. They are survival habits that slowly, dangerously, become something more. The Imperium trains its citizens to think of themselves as parts of a whole, but love begins the moment someone starts thinking in terms of you, instead of us. This is where the danger lies. Attachment creates hesitation. Hesitation gets people killed. The Imperium understands this instinctively, even if it never says it aloud. Guardsmen are rotated not just for tactical reasons, but emotional ones. Workers are reassigned without warning. Families are separated by clerical error and never reunited because correcting a mistake costs more effort than replacing a life. The system is not cruel by accident, it is cruel by design. Love complicates efficiency, and still, people try. Dating in Warhammer 40,000 is not about hope for the future. It is about stealing something from the present. It is about carving out moments of humanity in a schedule that does not acknowledge rest, let alone affection. Most relationships begin with an unspoken agreement: we will not ask for more than this. No promises are made, because promises invite grief. No, long-term plans are discussed, because long-term plans assume survival. Love becomes something intensely practical. Who will watch your back? Who will remember your name if you die? Who will mourn you, even if only for a moment? There is no safety in these connections. Every relationship exists under the shadow of separation. A transfer order, a draft notice, an orbital bombardment. In the Imperium, goodbye is rarely spoken, because everyone knows it might be the last word they ever share. Many lovers never realize they are lovers until one of them is gone. What remains is not closure, but absence, a hole in daily routine where someone used to exist. Yet for all its pain, love persists because it is one of the last ways Imperial citizens can assert that they are still human. Faith belongs to the Emperor. Bodies belong to the state. Even thoughts are monitored, guided, and shaped by doctrine. But affection, true, quiet, unspoken affection, often slips through the cracks. It cannot be tithed. It cannot be conscripted. It cannot be fully controlled. And that makes it dangerous in a way no weapon ever could be. This is not a story about romance as comfort. It is a story about romance as defiance. About people who know they will lose everything, and choose to care anyway. About love that does not save the day, does not change the galaxy, and does not end happily, but matters precisely because of that. In a universe where humanity survives by becoming numb, love is the one wound people willingly reopen. So when we ask what dating is like in Warhammer 40,000, we are not asking about joy. We are asking about risk. About what it means to reach for another person when the universe has made it clear that nothing lasts. And more importantly, we are asking why, when history, logic, and survival all argue against it, humanity still dares to try. Because even at the end of time, surrounded by endless war, there is still something inside the human soul that refuses to be alone. Why would anyone choose to love, when love was never meant to survive here? In the Imperium of Man, love is not forbidden, but it is never taught. No one explains how to recognize it, how to nurture it, or how to protect it. From the first breath to the last, Imperial citizens are educated in function, not feeling. They are taught where to stand, what to say, when to work, and when to die. Emotional literacy is unnecessary when lives are measured in output and sacrifice. And so, when love appears, it does so without language, without guidance, and without mercy. Most people in the Imperium will never hear the word, dating, spoken aloud. The concept implies choice, leisure, and future, all three luxuries the Imperium does not provide. Instead, relationships form through endurance. Two people survive the same conditions long enough that their presence becomes familiar. Familiarity becomes reliance. Reliance becomes attachment. And attachment, once formed, is almost impossible to undo. Love does not bloom here, it ossifies slowly, like bone forming around a wound. In the lower levels of hive cities, where sunlight is a rumor and fresh air is a privilege, intimacy is shaped by exhaustion. Workers collapse into shared hab blocks after shifts that grind the mind down to its simplest instincts. There is no energy left for performance or pretense. If someone stays, if someone listens, if someone does not leave, that alone can be enough. Love is not expressed through grand emotion, but through consistency. The same face in the crowd. The same voice at the end of the cycle. The same hands passing you food when the ration lines run dry. On agri-worlds, where lives are measured by harvest quotas and seasonal deaths, affection takes a different shape. Relationships are often assumed rather than declared. Two people work the same fields, sleep in the same quarters, and share responsibilities without ever acknowledging what binds them. Marriage, when it occurs, is less a celebration than a formalization of efficiency. Pairings are recorded, children are expected, and loss is anticipated. Grief is private, because there is always more work to be done. In the administratum, where time itself seems to decay beneath endless paperwork, dating becomes almost theoretical. Clerks may work beside one another for decades without knowing anything personal beyond rank and designation. Yet even here, love can emerge in strange ways. A shared joke scribbled in the margins of a requisition form. A quiet understanding between two souls buried under impossible bureaucracy. Romance becomes intellectual rather than physical, moments of recognition in a system designed to erase individuality. What unites all these relationships is the absence of illusion. No one pretends love will make things better. There are no fantasies of escape, no dreams of peaceful retirement. Even those who dare to imagine a future do so cautiously, as if speaking it aloud might draw the attention of fate. Love in the Imperium is practiced with clenched teeth, always braced for impact. Children grow up watching this quiet desperation. They learn early that affection is temporary. Parents vanish into war or labor drafts. Partners disappear behind sealed bulkheads or across the stars. Love is something you witness breaking others before it ever touches you. And yet, this does not stop people from trying. If anything, it teaches them to love quickly, deeply, and without apology, because there may never be another chance. The greatest tragedy is that most Imperial citizens never realize how abnormal this is. They do not mourn the absence of romance because they have never known it. They do not feel deprived of choice because they were never offered any. Love, when it happens, feels like an accident rather than a right. Something stolen rather than deserved. And stolen things must be hidden, protected, and sometimes abandoned to avoid worse consequences. This is why love in the Imperium often feels heavy. It carries the weight of inevitability. Every shared moment is shadowed by the knowledge that it could end without warning. There are no clean endings here. No final conversations. No last embraces. There is only silence, followed by replacement. The system does not pause to acknowledge what was lost. And yet, despite all of this, people still reach for one another. Not because they believe in happy endings, but because isolation is worse. Because even a brief connection can make an unbearable existence feel momentarily real. In a galaxy where humanity survives by turning itself into a resource, love is the last reminder that people are more than the roles assigned to them. This is the cruel paradox of dating in Warhammer 40,000. Love offers no protection, no escape, and no reward beyond itself. And still, it remains one of the few things the Imperium has never fully managed to destroy. Because even in a universe built on obedience, the human heart continues to disobey. What happens to love when the Imperium decides it's no longer convenient? In the Imperium of Man, relationships are not ended by arguments, betrayal, or loss of feeling. They end with paperwork, a stamped order, a reassignment code, a name struck from one duty roster and appearing on another light years away. There is no malice in this process, only indifference. The Imperium does not separate people because it hates love. It separates them because love is inefficient, and inefficiency is the closest thing this regime has to a sin. Most lovers never receive a warning. One cycle, they share a ration. The next, one of them is gone. No farewell, no explanation, no chance to say the words that were always postponed because there was time later. In the Imperium, there is never time later. The system functions on the assumption that every human life is interchangeable. Emotional continuity is not a variable worth tracking. This is how the Imperium quietly teaches its citizens not to attach. Not through fear, but through experience. After enough sudden losses, people begin to preemptively distance themselves. They stop asking names. They stop learning details. They stop imagining futures. Love becomes something to ration, just like food and sleep. Those who fail to learn this lesson are not punished directly, they are simply broken by repetition. In the Astra Militarum, this process is refined to a brutal efficiency. Guardsmen are deployed, rotated, and reinforced without regard for emotional bonds. Relationships formed on one world are severed on the next. Regiments are split, survivors are folded into new units with strangers who will soon become just as important, and just as temporary. The lesson is clear: no one belongs to you. Not even for a moment. What makes this cruelty so effective is its normality. No officer announces that love is forbidden. No commissar executes soldiers for caring. Instead, the Imperium relies on exhaustion, on grief, on the slow erosion of hope. It lets people love just enough to feel the loss, then moves on without acknowledgement. Over time, even the strongest hearts begin to harden, not because they want to, but because survival demands it. For civilians, the threat is quieter but no less final. Work reassignment orders arrive without explanation. Families are relocated to meet labor demands. Entire HAB blocks are emptied overnight due to contamination, restructuring, or simple clerical error. Lovers become separated not by choice, but by administrative necessity. And because the Imperium does not prioritize reunification, most of these separations are permanent. There are no appeals for love. No department exists to track emotional bonds. The administratum records births, deaths, and productivity metrics, but never heartbreak. From the system's perspective, a relationship ending is not an event. It is a rounding error. And so, for those left behind, grief becomes something to process alone, in silence, while life continues exactly as before. This is where love becomes dangerous, not because it invites punishment, but because it creates vulnerability. Those who have loved have something to lose. Something to hesitate over. Something that might make them question an order, delay a response, or break formation. The Imperium does not tolerate hesitation. And so, over time, love is filtered out, not through force, but through attrition. Yet some refuse to let go, even after loss. They remember names. They replay conversations. They hold on to small objects that once belonged to someone who is now just another entry in a casualty report, or worse, not recorded at all. These people carry love like a scar, visible only to themselves. And while the Imperium may never notice, the damage is real. The most insidious aspect of this system is that it teaches people to blame themselves. If you loved and lost, it must have been foolish. If it hurt, you must have been weak. The Imperium never says this aloud, but it does not need to. The silence says enough. Over time, citizens internalize the idea that caring is a personal failure, rather than a natural human response. And yet, even under this relentless pressure, love does not vanish completely. It adapts. It becomes quieter, shorter, less demanding. People learn to love without expectations, without promises, without illusions. They accept that every connection is temporary, and choose to form them anyway. Because even when the Imperium decides love is inconvenient, it cannot fully erase the need for it. It can only make it hurt more. And in a galaxy defined by suffering, pain has never been enough to stop humanity from reaching out to one another. How do you fall in love when you don't expect to survive the week? In the Astra Militarum, dating is not a slow discovery. It is an acceleration. Guardsmen do not have the luxury of time, so emotion compresses under pressure. What might take years elsewhere happens in days, sometimes hours. When every sunrise could be your last, hesitation feels like a waste. Love, here, is not cautious, it is reckless, intense, and brutally honest. Guardsmen meet under conditions designed to strip away illusion. There is no room for pretense in a trench filled with mud, blood, and fear. You learn who someone is very quickly when shells are falling and orders are screamed through smoke. You learn how they react to terror, how they treat the wounded, whether they share their last ration or hoard it. Attraction grows not from charm, but from trust forged under fire. If someone keeps you alive, if someone doesn't run when others do, that alone can be enough. Romance among soldiers is rarely spoken aloud. There is an unspoken understanding that words make things heavier. Saying, "I love you," feels like tempting fate. Instead, affection is communicated through action. Standing watch so the other can sleep. Checking a weapon twice. Carrying extra ammunition without being asked. These gestures are not romantic in any traditional sense, but in the Guard, they are intimate beyond measure. What makes these relationships so powerful is their fragility. Everyone knows how they are likely to end. The casualty rates are not secrets. The Guard does not promise survival, it promises duty. And yet, knowing this, people still attach themselves to one another. Perhaps because the knowledge of death sharpens emotion rather than dulling it. When tomorrow is uncertain, today becomes unbearably vivid. There is also an unspoken cruelty unique to military love, survival guilt. When one partner dies and the other lives, the relationship does not end, it transforms into something heavier. Memories become accusations. Every breath feels stolen. The survivor replays the last conversation endlessly, wondering if they said enough, if they wasted precious seconds on trivial words instead of meaning. In the Guard, grief does not stop deployment. It marches with you, step for step, into the next battle. Letters, when they exist, are both lifelines and weapons. Most never arrive. Some arrive too late. A message written with hope may be received after the writer is already dead. The words become ghosts, proof that someone once imagined a future that no longer exists. Guardsmen learn to fear correspondence almost as much as silence, because both can break you in different ways. Command rarely intervenes directly in these relationships. There is no need. The war does that on its own. Lovers are separated by redeployment, attrition, or simple probability. Entire units are wiped out, erasing not just individuals but the emotional ecosystems they formed. When replacements arrive, they inherit weapons, positions, and sometimes the unspoken presence of those who came before. Yet for all its brutality, love in the Imperial Guard serves a purpose the Imperium would never acknowledge. It keeps soldiers human just long enough to keep fighting. Someone who loves has a reason to endure another day, another charge, another impossible order. Love does not make them hesitate, it makes them stubborn. And stubbornness wins wars. This is the tragic irony. The Imperium relies on the very emotions it pretends not to care about. It benefits from the bonds formed in blood and terror, even as it ensures those bonds will be broken. The Guard fights not just for the Emperor, but for the person beside them, the one they don't want to disappoint, abandon, or leave behind. Dating in the Astra Militarum is not about building a life together. It is about surviving together for as long as fate allows. It is intense, brief, and often devastating. But for those moments, shared in the dark between battles, it feels more real than anything else in the galaxy. Because when death is everywhere, love does not feel like a distraction. It feels like the last thing worth holding onto. What happens when loving the wrong person becomes more dangerous than the enemy? In the Imperium of Man, danger does not always announce itself with gunfire or sirens. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as suspicion. A glance held too long. A conversation overheard. A pattern noticed by someone trained to see threats everywhere. Love, when it crosses the wrong boundary, stops being a private risk and becomes a public crime. The Imperium survives on paranoia. It must. Heresy, mutation, and corruption are not abstract dangers, they are real, existential threats that have consumed entire worlds. As a result, trust is rationed as carefully as ammunition. Citizens are taught not just to obey, but to watch, to report irregularities, to assume guilt before innocence. In such a system, intimacy becomes inherently suspicious. If two people are close, the question is not why, but what they might be hiding. Relationships that cross social, ideological, or hierarchical lines are especially dangerous. A laborer and an administratum scribe, an officer and an enlisted guardsman, a sanctioned psyker and anyone at all. These connections attract attention not because they are immoral, but because they disrupt order. The Imperium does not fear love, it fears unpredictability. And love, by its nature, makes people behave in ways that cannot be easily forecast. This is where dating shifts from quiet rebellion to active threat. Couples begin to self-censor. Conversations become guarded. Affection is stripped down to the bare minimum required to maintain connection. Every word is weighed for how it might sound if repeated by someone else. Every shared secret becomes a potential liability. Loving someone means trusting them not just with your heart, but with your life. The presence of the Inquisition looms over these relationships like a storm cloud. Most citizens will never see an inquisitor, but they do not need to. The fear is enough. Stories circulate of worlds purged because one person trusted the wrong companion. Of families destroyed because someone failed to report a loved one's deviation. Whether these stories are true matters less than the effect they have. Love becomes something you practice defensively. For some, this pressure erodes affection until nothing remains. Suspicion poisons intimacy. People pull away not because they stop caring, but because caring becomes unbearable. For others, the danger intensifies emotion. When discovery could mean death, every shared moment feels sharper, more precious. Love becomes an act of defiance not just against the Imperium, but against fear itself. Yet there is a cost to this defiance. When affection becomes evidence, people start to ask themselves terrible questions. If the authorities come, would I protect them, or save myself? Would I lie, would I stay silent, or would I speak, knowing what it would cost? The Imperium never forces these choices directly. It simply creates the conditions where betrayal feels inevitable. Some relationships end not with violence, but with disappearance. One partner vanishes after an investigation. No record, no confirmation of death, just absence. The one left behind never knows whether to grieve or hope. In the Imperium, uncertainty is its own punishment. Love without closure becomes a wound that never heals, only dulls with time. And then there are those who choose love despite everything. Who decide that a life lived without connection is no life at all. These people accept the risk fully, eyes open, knowing the likely outcome. Their love is not naive, it is deliberate. It is chosen in defiance of logic, survival instinct, and imperial doctrine. Dating in these circumstances is not about joy or fulfillment. It is about identity, about deciding who you are when the system demands conformity. Loving the wrong person becomes a way of asserting that you are more than a replaceable unit in a vast machine. That your inner life still belongs to you. The Imperium may tolerate love when it is quiet, useful, and invisible. But when love threatens to reshape loyalty, it becomes intolerable. And in that moment, when affection becomes rebellion, the true cost of dating in Warhammer 40,000 is revealed. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do in this galaxy is care about someone more than the system allows. If love was never meant to survive this galaxy, why does it refuse to die? In the end, dating in Warhammer 40,000 is not a story with a happy resolution. There is no final reunion, no safe world where lovers grow old together beneath peaceful skies. The galaxy does not allow such endings. It grinds them down, erases them, and moves on without looking back. And yet, love leaves traces, small, stubborn marks the Imperium can never fully scrub away. Those who survive carry love with them like a scar. Not something that cripples them, but something that aches when the weather changes. A memory of a voice lost to the void. A name that still surfaces unbidden in moments of exhaustion. Many never try again. They decide that one loss was enough for a lifetime. Others, impossibly, do the opposite. They love again, not because they believe it will last, but because they know what life feels like without it, and they refuse to return to that emptiness. The Imperium does not remember lovers. It remembers numbers, victories, and acceptable losses. But humanity remembers in quieter ways. In habits picked up from someone who is gone. In moral lines that were drawn because of another person's influence. In the simple refusal to become completely numb. Love changes nothing on a galactic scale, but it changes everything on a personal one. This is the truth at the heart of it all. Love does not save the Imperium. It does not stop wars. It does not protect worlds from annihilation. Often, it does not even save the people who feel it. But it proves something vital, that even in the darkest future imaginable, humanity has not fully surrendered what makes it human. Dating in Warhammer 40,000 is brief, painful, and often doomed. It is shaped by fear, loss, and inevitability. Yet it exists anyway, quietly, stubbornly, in the gaps between orders and explosions. In whispered moments stolen from a universe that offers nothing freely. And perhaps that is why it matters. Because in a galaxy where survival demands obedience, love is the one thing people choose for themselves. Not because it is logical. Not because it is safe. But because even at the end of time, surrounded by endless war, the human soul still reaches outward and says, I see you. I care. I was here. And in a universe that tries every day to erase that truth. That may be the greatest act of defiance of all.